Today, Chocolatiers, we take a slight detour in the Mummy Saga, but it is an important one because after the massive success of The Mummy Returns, the franchise did something unexpected. Instead of immediately jumping into another sequel, it decided to explore an origin story of a character who had only appeared briefly, but made a huge impression. The character was the Scorpion King, and the result was a spin-off film that shifted the tone of the franchise, introduced a new kind of hero, and helped launch one of the biggest action stars in Hollywood. Today we're talking about The Scorpion King, a movie that trades ancient curses and undead monsters for swords, warriors, and classic fantasy adventure. Before we get started, I do want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon producers. Thank you guys for supporting the channel and helping these videos happen. And if you want to get even more content like spoiler reviews, movie vlogs, game reviews, early uploads, check out the link in the description below. And let's get to it. When the audiences first saw the Scorpion King in The Mummy Returns, the character immediately stood out. He was mysterious, powerful, and visually striking, and even though his screen time was limited, he felt larger than life. Studios recognized that potential right away to get money. At the time, the actor playing the Scorpion King, Dwayne Johnson, was known primarily as a professional wrestler, but he had charisma, physical presence, and screen appeal, and Hollywood saw an opportunity to turn him into a leading man. So instead of making him a villain again, the spin-off reimagined the Scorpion King as a hero, and that decision changed everything. One of the first things that you notice about the Scorpion King is how different it feels from the previous films. This movie steps away from the heavy supernatural elements and focuses more on a grounded fantasy world. There are still mystical forces and ancient legends, but the story is driven primarily by human conflict rather than monsters. We are introduced to the Scorpion King, who's a skilled warrior and assassin who belongs to a group of people known as the Acadians, a tribe of mercenaries feared throughout the land, and right away the movie establishes him as a type of survivor. He's tough, resourceful, and lives by a code of honor. He is a lone wolf in this film, and that isolation becomes a key part of his journey overall. He's a very different kind of protagonist compared to Rick O'Connell. Rick is charming and sarcastic, often relying on humor to get through dangerous situations. Meanwhile, the Scorpion King, on the other hand, is more serious, more focused, and a warrior first and a leader second, and a hero only when circumstances force him to step up. What makes his character so interesting is that he starts a story motivated by revenge. His brother has been killed, and his people have been wiped out, and he's determined to take down the tyrant responsible. That emotional drive gives the character depth, and makes his transformation into a hero feel pretty earned.
Bring the woman to me! First man to touch her will have to come through me.
Every great adventure, of course, needs a strong villain. And in this movie, that role belongs to Memnon, a ruthless warlord determined to conquer the known world. Memnon isn't just powerful, he is strategic, he uses fear as a weapon, and he relies on a prophecy to maintain control over his enemies. This dynamic creates an interesting conflict because the story becomes a battle between fate and free will. Memnon believes that he's destined to rule, meanwhile the Scorpion King himself, Dwayne, believes destiny can be challenged. And that clash of beliefs drives the entire narrative. As the story unfolds, Mr. Johnson forms alliances with a group of unlikely companions, thieves, rebels, warriors, and this part of the movie feels like a classic fantasy adventure. There are some desert battles, some stealth missions, and he even escapes from enemy strongholds at one point. And there are also some moments of humor that lighten the tone. The pacing's also fast like most of the Mummy films before it, and the movie never stays in a place for too long, headed towards that final confrontation with Memnon. Compared to the previous films in the franchise, the action of Scorpion King feels a lot more grounded. There are fewer supernatural creatures and more hand-to-hand combat. Sword fights take center stage. Archery becomes a major set piece, and actually is how he takes out Memnon at the end of the film. And the physicality of the action feels more personal. This shift in style helps the movie stand on its own, even though it's connected to a larger franchise. One of the central themes of the movie is leadership. At the beginning of the story, he is focused solely on revenge, like I said before. But as he gains these allies and faces greater challenges, he begins to realize that his actions affect him or affect other people more than himself. He's no longer fighting for personal vengeance. He's fighting for a future of the entire kingdom. and that transformation from lone warrior to leader is that emotional heart that this film is kind of going for. And I really actually like the climax in this film. The action scene is awesome. The final battle brings everything together in a large-scale confrontation between the Scorpion King and Memnon. It's intense, physical, and it delivers the kind of satisfying payoff with a one-liner, I might add.
Catch this.
That you expect from a fantasy adventure. By the end of the movie, the Scorpion King has earned the title of the Scorpion King, not because he was born into power, but because he proved himself worthy of it. One of the biggest strengths of this film is that it's pretty simple. The story is very straightforward, it's not overcomplicated, the characters are very easy to understand, we understand their emotions. The action is consistently entertaining. Every fight scene still, I feel like, holds up. It's very fun. Another major strength is the performance of Dwayne Johnson. He's very fun in this. The Rock's awesome in this film. The film also had a turning point in his career, as making him a leading man, as we know. He's got a lot of charisma in this film. It was like a 180. I was watching this, I was like, oh, awesome. Now, what doesn't work in this movie, however, is that at the same time, you sit over there and look at a movie like this, even though I still like it, it's got its flaws. The tone feels a little bit lighter than the previous films, which may actually surprise fans expecting more of those horror elements. The visual effects, while impressive for the time, don't always hold up. They're not as bad as Mummy Returns, especially in the Scorpion King stuff, but they're still there. And the story, while entertaining, doesn't have the same emotional depth as the main entries in this franchise. In the end, the Scorpion King is a fun, energetic spin-off that expands the world of the franchise in a new direction. It introduces a new memorable hero, delivers plenty of action, and it proves that the universe of the Mummy is big enough to support stories beyond the original characters. Even though it feels different from the main films, it's an important chapter in this saga. And with that, next in the Mummy Saga, we return to the main storyline with The Mummy 3. New location, new mythology, new direction for the franchise. We'll be diving into The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, which I have to still watch. I'll be doing so tonight before I make my video tomorrow. And this is where the saga is taking a controversial turn. I know the plot, I still remember it, but this is going off brain about 10, 15 years ago. So I'm very, very excited to touch on that one. That's the one where I just remember that we had is it the mom? I don't know. It's the mom. We'll find out. Click, like, subscribe. We'll find out tomorrow. I'll catch you guys on the next one.